Hi everyone, I have 4 images to pick from last year's wedding. I am going to pick the one that I'm going to edit today for you and show you my personal preference as to wedding photo editing. This is my first example and we're going to start with this image. So here you have the DNG file from Pentax camera, the medium format. I don't think this needs a lot of explaining. So basically I'm going to be playing with colour, sharpness, white balance, contrast, shadows, hue, saturation. Feel free to skip this part. As I said, this is a personal preference, so you might want to edit your photos slightly differently. I won't be explaining a lot of the shortcuts that I might be using, so just pause the video if you need to double check on any of the settings. When I selected this image, I did think that I could possibly turn it into black and white photo, and with the end result I do feel that is an option, and some people would probably prefer it that way. But I do think that there's quite a lot of colour with the dresses and the clouds and the trees, and I really didn't want to lose that. So I will be adding a little bit of colour just to make it more vibrant, dynamic and playful. When editing hue, saturation and luminance, I like to play with each slider just to see what effect it has on the image. Obviously the yellows, the reds and the oranges would affect quite a lot of the skin colours and tones. The blues and the greens would affect everything else around, also the dresses, which I'm not too concerned about because I don't think we would know what the actual dress colour is originally, so I don't really mind changing that quite a bit. But I do want to have the skin tones looking quite natural, sunny and pleasant to look at. The example of the greens and yellows, when you slide left or right, it changes the tree colour to more spring looking instead of a cold autumny. Same I've done with the clouds, added more vibrance just to make it look like a more sunny day than a rainy, cloudy one. Here I'm playing with the camera calibration colours. It's something that I do like doing just to change the feel of the photo, but it's not very necessary because you can always add extra layers once you finish editing your actual photo by adding, for example, special actions that you might have purchased or downloaded off the internet. Now we have the photo open. I'm going to do the teeth whitening. I'm going to use Greater Than Gatsby action for teeth whitening, and I will be doing this mainly for the bride and the groom, but also for all the other guests. You may feel that this is not necessary, but because I was changing the colours of the overall look of the photo, I feel like I do need fix up a little bit. One of these actions are downloadable off the internet. Probably you could find one for free, or you could purchase a whole package, which is very useful, not only editing the teeth but also eyes, like iris sparkle, whitening the eye whites, making the makeup look more dramatic, etc. So very useful and definitely worth the money. For those who are not really familiar with what I'm doing at the moment, is I'm using a layer mask which has been created automatically from the action, and I'm painting onto the layer with white brush, and then painting back in with black just to hide and show particular parts of the layer. So this layer would get rid of unnecessary colours to the teeth and whiten them. So I would just paint that action into the photo and later play with the percentage just to see how much effect it has on the overall look. If it's too much or not enough, I would increase or decrease the percentage, and I would do that to all the other people in the photo. now that I have done a few changes to the photo, I'm going to save it just in case the Photoshop crashes. Like I said before, I'm trying to make this image look more dramatic, hence I'm going to be adding a few extra confetti pieces, and this is basically just cutting out the existing pieces, pasting them in, changing the colour of them, shape, the angle. Further, I'm going to be changing their size and blurriness, so just follow through. This is quite a nice effect. You may think it's a bit too much, but I do think it adds quite a lot to the image. It makes it look more lively, so I hope you enjoyed that bit as much as I do. Here I'm trying to cut out a blue confetti piece, but because my feather is on 20 pixels, it's actually not selecting enough of the area, so Photoshop is basically telling me to move on to a bigger piece. Here again, this is something very intuitive that I'm doing. I'm not actually following any rules. I'm just trying to make this image look more dynamic to my liking. Here I'm adding a Gaussian blur to each single piece, and the size of the radius of the Gaussian blur is going to be dependent on each single piece. Again, I'm going to be looking at which one works better for each piece. I'm also going to be adding the motion blur to make it more realistic. If you ever shot an image through flying objects, you will probably more or less know what this effect would look like, and it may look fake, but I think if you didn't get to see the image before, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that this is in fact fake. My next plan of action for this image is to brighten the dress. So I'm going to be using the curves layer mask, which I'm going to hide by turning it into black and then painting it white with the brush only over the dress areas. So that's going to help make it stand out a bit more. Please note I'm only using the 1% for the flow and 100% for the opacity. This helps me to control the effect it has on the image better, and I can add on more by stroking the area a few times, looking at the overall effect by zooming out and turning the mask off and on, just to see how much damage or repair I've done to the actual dress. I'm adding an extra curves layer to see the shadows on the dress better. This is just to help my eyes see more detail on the dress. Also, I'm turning it into black and white, which helps me to get rid of any distractions that I don't need from the colour. So I just see the areas that need fixing. The same effect applies to the face, so I'm going to be getting rid of slight shadows on the face just to make it look more pleasant looking. It's just because normally I wouldn't edit any of the wrinkles or anything like that on the photo like this, but just because we have a cloudy day with quite a strong sun coming through the clouds, it makes everybody squint and the wrinkles show a lot more, the shadows under the eyes show a lot more. So instead of removing those completely, I'm just trying to brighten them up a little bit. Same with the forehead, I'm not going to be removing the wrinkles completely. Once again, just slightly getting rid of the shadows, and at the end I will increase or decrease the percentage this layer is affecting the image. By this point I'm quite happy with the image, so I'm creating a new layer with a filter effect of high pass. This will help me to sharpen the image just in the areas I want it to be sharper. My main focus is the bride and the groom, so I'm not going to be blurring out any of the other areas. I'm just going to sharpen the middle area of the newlyweds. So also the blend mode will be soft light, so the layer is visible in such way. Then turning into black, so it's not actually visible, and then painting into the areas I want to be sharper. So here I'm painting over the bride's face, also the dress, hair, and the groom's suit and face. The only thing I would change is to change the brush back to black and paint again over the face areas like cheeks and neck, because we don't really want those sharper, we just want them to be quite soft, and eyes and teeth staying sharp, so the detail stands out more and the skin looks healthier. At this point I'm trying to find things that are distracting me from the image, and in this case I'm just trying to make this little shadow on the belly disappear, not because I think it's too big, I just think it's slightly distracting while looking at the image. So instead of using liquify and pushing the belly in, I'm just going to remove the shadow from the dress, and it's going to appear a lot flatter. Again, this is due to the sun coming from the top and creating a nasty shadow there. So I was nearly done with the image and I was trying to save it and call it a day, but I've also noticed that the groom has too much confetti on his face, so I'm going to be removing that with a stamp tool and some of the liquify to fix the areas that I've affected by removing it. This is obviously trial and error, so I will be going back and forth removing it over and over again until I'm happy with the effect. for watching. I hope you enjoyed the end result.